Intimacy is about our ability and need to experience emotional closeness with oneself and others. It is about understanding and being able to share our own feelings as well as understanding others. We need to understand our own feelings in order to feel emotional proximity to ourselves, to feel emotionally close to ourselves. And in the same way, we need to be able to understand other people's feelings, to be able to experience emotional closeness to others. This need is as great as our need for physical closeness, sensuality. And you can simply say that intimacy is sensuality for feelings or emotions. It is about our awareness, acceptance, and comfort with our own feelings and those of others, as well as our relationship with our feelings and our ability and need to feel lots of different emotions with ourselves and others. But how do we know what feelings we actually have? So think about how you're feeling right now. How would you describe that feeling to someone who has never felt it before? So how do we really know what emotions we feel? How do we learn to understand that what we feel, for example, is happiness or sadness? Sometimes we can have the same physical reaction for different emotions. For example, I can smile because I'm happy, but also if I'm nervous, excited, or just because everyone else is smiling. So how do we know what is what? We are all born with the ability to feel emotions, and we all have 7 basic emotions: joy, surprise, anger, distaste, fear, sadness, and contempt. These then express themselves in many different emotions. We have both the ability to feel lots of different feelings, but also a need for it. We need to feel emotional closeness to ourselves and others, which is why it is very important that we learn to feel and understand our feelings, and also learn to put words into them so that we can share them with others. And how we learn to feel and understand our emotions is very much dependent on the people around us as we grow up. So if we say I'm a parent, and my little daughter is running around here and kicking a football. She falls and starts bleeding on her knee. And I, as a parent, stay here and just say, come on, up and at it again. It wasn't that bad. Keep on playing. Then what I'm really saying to the child is, whatever you feel right now, just ignore it. It's not important. Just get up and go. So I teach the child to try to push away their feelings, hold them in, and continue to fight no matter how it feels. What can also happen is that as a parent, I see my little daughter fall and immediately run forward. And, I'm all like, oh, little darling, how are you? Are you okay? Oh, it probably hurt a lot. Oh, I understand that you're really sad. Come here and I will take care of you, my poor little baby. So, as in the previous example, I did not try to understand how the child feels, but I project feelings onto the child so that I'm conveying my own feelings to the child. I tell the child that it did hurt and that she should be sad. So again, what I'm really saying to the child is, whatever she feels in this situation, it's not so important, but there are feelings that she should feel. So what I teach the child is that she will, instead of feeling and understanding her own feelings, she will try to feel what is expected of her. And she will become an expert at feeling and trying to satisfy everyone else's feelings, while at the same time pushing away her own. So she will simply learn to take care of the feelings of others before her own. So in both cases, the child learns that when feelings come, they should preferably be pushed away and hidden, not take their place or be shown. The child does not learn to understand their feelings either, and therefore does not learn how to handle them. What happens when we do not feel our emotions is that we instead feel anxiety. When we push away our emotions and try to ignore them, psychologists usually describe this as putting a thick, heavy, wet blanket over our emotions. So, in the vacuum of emotions, anxiety arises. Anxiety is strong feelings of fear and worry, and it can be very uncomfortable and can be felt strongly in our bodies. So, for example, you may feel pressure over your chest. Your heart might beat fast and or hard, and you might feel a stomach ache or dizzy or just weak. It may feel like a lump in your stomach or your throat. Anxiety is one of the things that usually characterizes mental illness. It is usually said that mental illness is living with stress, worry, and anxiety on a daily basis. So trying to push away our feelings is not something that makes us feel good, but on the contrary, it rather risks causing us to feel very bad. In order to manage anxiety and reduce it, it is very important that we feel the feelings that the anxiety is trying to avoid us feeling. So trying to feel and understand what emotions we really have, accepting them and letting them play out is the best way to deal with and reduce anxiety. And it is also the best way to prevent anxiety. So if we come back to my little daughter here who falls, then I, as a parent or coach, can go up to her, sit down at her height, and simply ask her, how did it go? How does it feel? And even though a toddler may not be able to articulate their feelings, you open up to giving them space to feel them. And then you just follow along and listen and confirm, explaining what the child shows that they feel. So she might start crying a little and say, it hurts. Then I say, I understand it hurts. Maybe you feel a little sad. Do you want a hug? Should we put a bandage on your knee maybe? Okay. How are you feeling now? A little better. Okay. We can sit here so I can hold on to you until it feels good again. Or maybe the child immediately says when you ask, how did it go? Good, I want to keep on playing. And then there's nothing more to it. So the main thing is that by just asking open questions, you allow the child to feel and communicate their feelings. This is how we learn to connect what we know with words that describe how we feel so that we can share feelings with others. And sharing our feelings and expressing them is very important. Scientists and psychologists have done studies where they have x-rayed the brains of people and asked them to think of something that makes them angry. So when thinking about something that made them very angry, it showed a high activity in the brain, in the centers where anger is activated. And then they asked the person to tell them what they felt. And the person described, I feel angry, I feel tense, I have pressure over my chest, and so on. And straight away, when the person started to describe what it felt like, the activity in the brain linked to anger decreased. So by putting words into what it felt like, the intensity of anger decreased and the person could begin to handle the feeling. And now, of course, you wonder, how is it with joy then and happiness? Because that's a feeling that we don't want to get rid of, right? So should we just then keep quiet about our wonderful emotions so that they do not decrease in intensity? The researchers did the same study, but instead asked the person to think of something that made them happy. Then they saw on the X-ray that the activity of happiness increased in the brain. And then they asked the person to tell them how they felt. And they described the feeling. I feel happy, lively, I can't stop smiling, and so on. And when the person described how it felt to be happy, the feeling increased in intensity. So the old saying, "Shared joy is double joy," is now scientifically proven. So whether our emotions are positive or negative, we will simply feel better, and we will be better able to handle our emotions as we begin to feel, understand, and express them. And expressing our feelings does not only have to be by talking about them. It can be by writing a diary, or drawing, or dancing, or for example by playing football. Simply finding an outlet for our feeling works. But in order for us to understand our feelings, it is important to be able to put words to them, even if we only put words on them for ourselves. This is how you, as a leader, can play a big role in the development of children, because you can help them begin to feel, understand, and express their feelings. By giving open questions to the child, you can feel and try to put words to what the child is feeling, increasing the child's well-being and reducing the risk of anxiety. And the sooner we start, the better. So for example, starting your training session by checking in with "What are you feeling right now?" is a great way to check in with our feelings more and bring them into conversations. You will always have children who have different contact with their feelings, simply because everyone grows up in different ways and are given varying amounts of space to feel what they really feel. So you will probably have parents or guardians from the first example to the last and everything in between. But what you can do is start with your players' different needs and encourage them to feel and express their feelings. And show that it is natural to feel all the different emotions that we know of. And here, football really helps us, because football naturally has so many different emotions linked to winning, losing, being in a team, and so on. If you have players who have never learned to express their feelings, you can use other ways to talk about it. For example, checking in with, "What color do you feel like today?" This is something that almost all children can intuitively answer. And then you can later try to understand what the different colors mean in conversations with the children, as a way for them to start talking about feelings at a slightly greater distance, so that it doesn't feel as intimate or exposed as talking about their own feelings directly. If both you and your players understand and accept your feelings, you will understand each other better as well. Remember that we all have a need for emotional closeness to ourselves and others, and that we can only feel this if we first get to know our own feelings, understanding them and accepting them, so that we then can also express them. When we do that, we will gain better self-esteem and a deeper understanding of how we are affected by our emotions and what we need when we feel different things. And also understanding when someone close to you needs to seek help. Emotions are fundamental in all relationships we have, and it is therefore important to be able to communicate how we feel in order to have meaningful relationships that we feel good about. And the only way to learn is to simply practice to feel and express our feelings. And here, you as a leader can play a very big role for your players in their development and well-being.